Okay. All right. So we will continue with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. We completed till verse number 11 yesterday. Anybody remembers anything from yesterday? Okay, so we heard in the purport that Arjuna was speaking about lower kind of knowledge. He was posing as if he is very knowledgeable. He was giving reasons to not fight, and he was showing his compassion on the bodily platform. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada wrote in this verse number 11 that real knowledge is the knowledge of the matter and soul and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? And the relation between them. So that is the real knowledge we need to act on. All right. So should we continue from verse number 12 now? So now this section from 11 to 30 is knowledge about the spirit soul. And Krishna from many, many different angles is going to prove that we are not this body but the spirit soul, and nothing happens to spirit soul actually. Yeah. All right. So let's continue from verse number 12. Someone would like to read?
I can read, Mother.
Yeah.
Thank you. Na tau evam chatu nasam na tvam neme chana dipa na cheva na bhavis yam maha sarve vayam ataparam. Translation purport by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these things, nor in the future, nor in the future shall any one of us cease to be. In the Vedas, in the Katha Upanishads, as well as in the Svetaustara, Sveta, Svetasautara Upanishads, it is said that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the one maintainer of innumerable living entities in terms of a different situations according to individual work and reaction of work. That Supreme Personality of the Godhead is also by its plenary portions alive in the heart of every living entity. Only saintly persons who can see within and without the same Supreme Lord can actually attain to the perfect and eternal peace. Nityam nityanam chetana chetanam eko bahunam yo vidadhati kama tam atmastam ye anuspasyanti diras te samsanti tasvati netarisam. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13. The same Vedic truth given to Arjuna is given to all persons in the world who pose themselves as very learned but actually have but a poor fund of knowledge. The Lord says clearly that He Himself, Arjuna, and all the kings who are assembled on the battlefield are eternally individual living beings, and that the Lord is eternally the maintainer of the individual living entities, both in the conditioned state and in the liberty situations. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme individual person, and Arjuna, the Lord's eternal associate. And all the kings assembled there are individual eternal persons. It is not that they did not exist as individuals in the past, and it is not that they will not remain in eternal, but it will not remain eternal persons. Their individuality existed in the past, and their individuality will continue in the future without interruption. Therefore, there is no cause for lamentation for anyone. The Mayavadi philosopher that after liberation, the individual soul separated by the covering of Maya illusion will merge into the impersonal Brahman and lose its individual existence is not supported herein by Lord Krishna, the supreme authority. Nor is the theory that we only think of the individuality in the condition state supported here. Krishna clearly says herein that in the future also individuality of the Lord and the others, as it is confirmed in the Upanishad, will continue eternally. This statement of Krishna is authoritative because Krishna cannot be subject to illusion. If individuality was not a fact, then Krishna would have not stressed it so much. even for the future. The Mayavadi may argue that the individuality spoken of by Krishna is not spiritual, but material. Even accepting the argument of this individual that the individuality is material, how can how can one distinguish Krishna's individuality? Krishna affirms his individuality in the past and confirms the individuality in the future also. He has confirmed his individuality in many ways, and impersonal Brahman has been declared to be subordinate to him. Krishna has maintained spiritual individuality all along. If he is accepted as an ordinary conditioned soul in individual consciousness, then the Bhagavad Gita has no value as an authoritative scripture. A common man with all the four defects of human frailty is unable to teach, which is worth hearing. The Gita is about such literature. No mundane book compares to the Bhagavad Gita. When one accepts Krishna as an ordinary man, the Gita loses its importance. The Mayavadis argue that the plurality mentioned in this verse is conventional and that it refers to the body. But previous to this verse, such a bodily conception is already condemned. After condemning the bodily conception of living entities, how is it possible for Krishna to place a conventional proposition on the body again? Therefore, individuality is maintained spiritual grounds and thus confirmed by great acharyas like Sri Ramanacharya and others. It is clearly mentioned in many places in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The non-devotee's approach to the teachings of the Gita is something like that of a bee licking on the bottle of honey. One cannot have a taste of honey unless one opens the bottle. Similarly, the mysticism of Bhagavad Gita can be understood only by a devotee and no one else can taste it, as it is stated in the fourth chapter of the book. Nor can the Gita be touched by persons who envy the very existence of the Lord. Therefore, the Mayavadi expression of the Gita is the most misleading representation of the whole truth. Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to read commentations by Mayavadis and warns that one who takes to such understanding of the Mayavadi philosophers loses all power to understand the real mystery of the Bhagavad Gita. If individuality refers to the empirical universe, then there is no need of the teaching by the Lord. The plurality of the individual soul and of the Lord is an eternal fact, and it is confirmed by the Vedas as above mentioned. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yeah, Prabhu. Long purport. You want to say something?
Yes, Mataji. So again, Krishna is making very clear to Arjuna that both him and Arjuna existed in the past, and all the kings there, they all exist in the past, and they existing now, and they exist in the future. So Srila Prabhupada, uh, again, Krishna is explaining to Arjuna why the soul is always the person is always eternal. He's talking about the soul here, but in the purport we see that this individuality is very very important. That even in the conditioned state we are individual, and even in the liberated state we are going to be individual. So this Mayavadi philosophy of merging and becoming one is not accepted. So the individuality, regardless of what one situation is always going to be maintained. And we existed in the past, we are going to continue to exist now, and we are going to exist in the future. And the thing is, Krishna, another thing is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna is not an ordinary person, because ordinary people are subject to four kinds of defects. They commit to make mistakes, become illusion, uh, cheating propensity, and I forget one more. I forget the last one. And
Illusion.
illusion, yeah. So, and an ordinary person cannot say that. So the Bhagavad Gita is not ordinary literature, because it is not spoken by an like ordinary living entity who is who is subject to this four defects. The Bhagavad Gita is spoken by Krishna, and that's why the Bhagavad Gita is not a mundane literature.
Mm.
And the Bhagavad Gita can only be understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Those who are envious of Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead have no bona fide access to the great literature. The Bhagavad Gita is maintained spiritual grounds and thus confirmed by the Vedas and others. It is clearly mentioned in the Gita that this spiritual individuality is understood by those who are devotees of the Lord. Therefore, individuality refers to the empirical universe, and if you are in the
devotees.
position of a devotee, that
Mm,
if you don't approach the Bhagavad Gita with a devotional attitude, then you really won't understand the message of the Bhagavad Gita.
mm,
And one important thing is Lord Chaitanya has forbidden us to
mm,
try to listen or study the Bhagavad Gita from a Mayavadi, because if you do, you'll destroy
mm,
your spiritual life. You'll destroy your
mm.
devotional life. Yes, Mataji, that's all.
Yeah, so basically, the very important point that Srila Prabhupada is making in the purport about Mayavadi theory. So, Krishna in this verse is saying about that we are eternal, we were always present. So, who is going to be killed, Arjuna? Like, why are you thinking about that you are going to kill your relatives, right? So, in this
Right.
verse, that all living entities they are eternal and they are individual. They were individual before, they are, and they will be in future also. So there is no lamentation about this death. And in the next verse he will continue. So Srila Prabhupada is then trying to, in the beginning he is differentiating between the individual soul and Krishna. Actually, the Krishna who is the maintainer, and we all are to be maintained. Very, very important point about refuting the Mayavad theory, because Mayavadi says that once we die, meaning the body leaves, then we will become one with the Supreme. We will become God. That's what they say. So, but Krishna in this verse is saying that the soul is always individual. It's not going to be merging into anything. It will always be individual. It's not like it's not broken from original consciousness and then it will merge again. It's not that. The soul is unbreakable, right? Um, so they say that the after liberation, the soul merges or dissolves homogeneously into impersonal Brahman and lose individual existence. And the refutation is, but we know that the soul is in. We will be hearing that in the coming up verses that the soul is insoluble and never dissolves in anything. Then Mayavadi may argue that individuality exists only in conditioned state, meaning in when we are in material world, then we are individuals, but when we leave the material world, then we will become one with the impersonal Brahman. But Krishna here is saying that the individuality of Krishna and the living entities for future also is there. It's not that it is going to go away. So then Mayavadi might argue that individuality is material and not spiritual. So Prabhu, you have covered all these points, but I'm just going sequentially just to emphasize. Yeah. So how can one so Prabhu already has done that, that actually if it is at the material level, then Krishna has no better importance basically, then Bhagavad Gita has no significance for us. So that is the refutation. And then the last argument about Mayavad philosophy, the defeating of argument is, so plurality mentioned in this verse refers to body. So Mayavadis say that. But the refutation is both bodily conception condemned in the previous verse. Why would Lord place a conventional proposition on the body again? So in the previous verse, Krishna has already spoken that, oh Arjuna, why are you thinking on the bodily platform, right? Yeah. So, and yeah, that's all. And Prabhu, you had already mentioned about the Mayavad, Lord Chaitanya's warning against Mayavadis. So next verse is going to speak about Dhira. Who is a Dhira? So I think we can do one more verse and then end. Yeah, someone wants to read?
I'll read.
Okay, yeah.
Verse 13. Um, Hino Samin Yatha di, di, dete,
dehe,
dehi,
homa,
umarim, rim, ya, vita, ani, shara, tata, tatha, dihinatura, pra, pretir, dehir, de, dehiras, tatra, na, mu, muhati,
muhyati, muhyati.
muhuyati.
Mm.
Reports. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
Since every living entity is an individual soul, each is changing his body every moment, manifesting sometimes as a child, sometimes as a youth, sometimes as an old man. Yet the same spirit soul is there and does not undergo any change. This individual soul finally changes the body at death and transmigrates to another body. And since it is sure to have another body in the next birth, either material or spiritual, there is no cause for lamentation by Arjuna on the account of death, neither for Bharisma nor for Drona, for whom he has such concern. Rather, he should rejoice for their changing bodies from old to new ones, thereby rejuvenating their energy. Such changes of body account for varieties of enjoyment and suffering according to one's work in life. So Bhisma and Drona, being noble souls, were surely going to have spiritual bodies in the next life, or at least in heavenly bodies for superior enjoyment for material existence. So, in either case, there is no cause for lamentation. Any man who has perfect knowledge of the constitution of the individual soul, the super soul, and nature, both material and spiritual, is called a Dahira, or most sober man. Such a man is never deluded by the change of bodies. The Mayavadi theory is of oneness of the spirit and the soul cannot be entertained. What? Oh, never mind.
Yeah, I just sneezed. Sorry.
Entertained on the ground that the spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces as a fragmental portion. Such cutting into the different individual souls would make the supreme cleavable or changeable against the principle of the supreme soul being unchangeable. As confirmed in the Gita, the fragmental portions of the supreme exist eternally, santana, and are called karsa, karsara. That is, they have a tendency to fall down into material nature. These fragmental portions are eternally so. And even after liberation, the individual soul remains the same, fragmental. But once liberated, he lives an eternal life in bliss and knowledge that the personality of Godhead, the theory of reflection can be applied to the supersoul who is present in each and every individual and is known as the Paramatta. He is different from the individual living entity. When the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and the moon and the stars also. The stars can be compared to living entities and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. The
Sid Prabhu, you got muted. You got muted. Yeah.
Where did I stop?
So you were here compared to live. So I think here the stars can be compared to the living entities and the sun or moon to the Supreme Lord.
Okay, the individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna, and the supreme soul is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. They are not on the same level, as it will be apparent in the beginning of the fourth chapter. If Arjuna is on the same level with Krishna, and Krishna is not superior to Arjuna, then their relationship of instructor and instructed becomes meaningless. If both of them are deluded by the illusory energy, Maya, there is no need for one being the instructor and the other being instructed. Such instruction would be useless because in the clutches of Maya, no one can be an authorized instructor. Under the circumstances, it is admitted that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Lord, superior in position to the living entity, Arjuna, who is a forgetful soul deluded by Maya. Hare Krishna. Okay. You know what? I was too busy reading. Kasturi, take over.
Sorry, I was just on mute. Sorry, Prabhu.
No.
Yeah, so okay, so let's just go over it. So basically, this verse is speaking about that since we take the body, meaning when we are little baby born babies, and then we become little older, then we become young, and then old age, and then so basically there is a change in body happening all the time, but the soul is the same inside that body for when we are born as a baby,
Mhm.
and then as we are growing, the body is changing. Similarly, at the time of death, meaning when the body dies, the soul enters another body. So there is no reason for lamentation because it's just changing the body and the soul is still remaining the same. So what Krishna is telling Arjuna, that the sober person is not bewildered by such a change because the body is changing anyways, so the soul is going to another body. So that is what this verse is speaking about. So then in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that okay, if that is happening, then you are actually concerned about and you are lamenting about killing Bhishma and Drona and all your relatives. So Bhishma and Drona, they will get a new body actually. You should be happy. Either they will get a special body or they will get a body in some heavenly planets, which will be even better from now actually. Right now they have the old bodies, they cannot enjoy so much, but once they change the body, then it will be new body actually and better enjoyment. It could either be spiritual or it could be in the higher planets because they were good soul and they are fighting in the religious battle. Okay, then Srila Prabhupada is speaking about what is it mean by dhira. So one who has knowledge about the matter and the soul and the super soul and the nature, both material and spiritual, they are not disturbed by the change that is happening in the body. And when the soul is taking another body, leaving this old body and taking another body, they don't see any bewilderment. They are not disturbed by it. So that those are the dhiras. So they are not disturbed by the changes, and they tolerate the dualities. So they become eligible for liberation. Then the next part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is refuting the Mayavad philosophy. So the theory of oneness of spirit soul, it is not uh, like this verse is defeating that. So spirit soul cannot be cut into pieces. That it was Srila Prabhupada wrote. It is like a fragmental part of like we hear that we are Sanatana, we are eternally part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. So that is what we understand. Our philosophy is that the soul cannot be cut into pieces, and the soul is not cleavable. And yeah, and then uh, we are tiny portions, and we are fallible. We have tendency to fall, meaning we forget our constitutional position of being servant of the Supreme Lord. So, and then he says that even after liberation, spirit soul remains individual, fragmental, tiny part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. It does not merge into the Supreme Soul, right? Then he speaks about the theory of reflection. Oh, we are already, time is already done, but quickly. So the theory of reflection, so it can be applied to the super soul who is present in each and every individual body, and he is Paramatma. So that, and the Supreme Soul is different from the living entities. So when the sky is reflected in water, the reflections represent both the sun and moon and the stars also. So the stars, they are compared to living entities, and the sun or the moon to the Supreme Lord. So, and then the individual fragmental spirit soul is represented by Arjuna. So Arjuna is the tiny spirit soul like us, who has a tendency to forget the relationship with the Supreme Lord, the constitutional uh, position. And the Supreme Soul is the personality of God at Shri Krishna. So, and then Srila Prabhupada in the end, he says that soul is never equal to super soul. In the theory of reflection, it was like how sun and moon are not same as the stars. So if they are equal in position, then there is no question of instructor and instructed. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Arjuna is the living entity who is forgetting actually his position, real position. So that's all is given in this purport. I hope I didn't mess up. Yeah. All right, dear devotees, anything anybody wants to share quickly? It's already late, but if you have something to share quickly.
Yeah, Mataji, I just want to add that I read in another purpose somewhere when Srila Prabhupada was describing this Mayavadi philosophy of becoming one by merging into the Brahman effulgence. So Srila Prabhupada said, even when they merge into the Brahman effulgence, they still maintain their individuality.
Mm.
So, so it's not that they don't, because they merge into Brahman, but they want to become one. They can't, but they still maintain their individuality. And since
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing to do there, then they fall down back to this material
Mm-hmm.
world.
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. Anything else quickly, devotees?
No, Mataji, nothing.
All right. So yeah, this kind of refuting the Mayavadi arguments, we should really take it up, because it's sometimes people will ask. And Srila Prabhupada gave that example of uh, in that was in the previous one. So yeah, so no need to lament for the change of the body. So actually, when we understand that we are eternal, when we see that we are eternal, it's just the body that is changing. And anyway, the body is changing from little boy to little grown up, and then we become youth, and then it dwindles, old age and disease and death comes, right? So when we understand that nothing happens to soul, it gives us a relief, right? It gives us a choice. So meaning we have a choice to act at every moment.
Yeah, because we are always worried, thinking about this
Yeah.
one, and
Mm. Yeah.
hearing will never dies. That gives us good relief.
Mm. Yeah. So yeah. Actually, we won't be worried about that. Oh, what will happen to me? The soul is going to stay the same, right? Okay, so dear devotees, I think we should end here. It is already 8:46, way above our time. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada
Thank
ki
you.
jai, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Granthra Srimad
Jai.
Bhagavatam ki jai,
भागवतम
Ananta
की
Koti
जय
Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai.
नवृंद की
Vancha
जय
kalpatarubhyascha
तरुपयश्च
कृपा sindhu
कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव
bhayascha
च
patitanam
पतितानां
pavanebhyo
पावनेभ्यो
Vaishnavebhyo
वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः
Namo Namah.
Hari Hari Bol.
हरि
Thank you,
बोल
Hari
dear
Hari Bol.
devotees.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.
थैंक यू
Hare
माता जी थैंक यू
Krishna.
डिवोटीज